My wife refused to let me touch her for 30 straight days after our wedding, but that wasn't even the real betrayal. What I found hidden in her desk drawer made those 30 days of rejection look like mercy. In fact, it made me question whether our entire 3-year relationship had been nothing more than a carefully planned lie. If you think you know where this story is going, I promise you don't. Because what I did next wasn't just revenge. It was something that transformed both our lives in ways neither of us saw coming. My name is Wade Hutchins, and 5 years ago, I married the woman I thought was my soulmate. Today, I'm finally ready to share what really happened during those first 30 days of marriage that shattered everything I believed about love, trust, and the person I'd promised to spend my life with. But here's the thing. This isn't just another story about infidelity or deception. This is about something far more calculated, something that will make you question everything you think you know about the person sleeping next to you. Before I continue, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself. Have you ever ignored warning signs in a relationship because you desperately wanted to believe in the fairy tale? Have you ever been so in love that you refused to see what was right in front of you? Drop a comment below. Just type yes if you've been there, because I guarantee you're not alone. And if you want to hear more true stories about relationships that take shocking turns, hit that subscribe button right now and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends, because here's what nobody tells you about revenge. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's forcing someone to become the person they pretended to be. And sometimes, just sometimes, that leads to something nobody expects, including yourself. Let me take you back to where it all started, 3 years before that nightmare first month of marriage. It was a charity fundraiser in Denver, one of those events where wealthy tech executives write big checks to feel good about themselves. I know that sounds cynical now, but back then, I genuinely wanted to help. My software company had just landed a major contract, and I was there to donate tablets to underprivileged schools. That's when I saw Nadine for the first time. She wasn't just running the event, she was commanding it. The way she moved through that ballroom, making every donor feel like the most important person in the room, connecting volunteers with tasks, solving problems before they became problems. It was like watching a conductor lead a symphony. She had this genuine warmth that you couldn't fake, or at least that's what I thought at the time. When she approached me to thank me for the donation, something clicked. We talked for 2 hours that night, not about business or charity tax write-offs, but about real things. Our families, our dreams, our fears about making a real difference versus just playing at philanthropy. Most people here are just checking boxes, she'd said, gesturing at the crowd, but you actually care. I can tell how wrong we both were about reading people. Our relationship moved fast, but it felt natural. Coffee dates turned into hiking weekends. Hiking weekends turned into traveling together. Within 6 months, we were practically living at each other's places. Within a year, we made it official and moved in together. Here's something important. During those 2 years of dating, our relationship was everything you'd want. We were affectionate, compatible, supportive of each other's careers. She'd stay late to help me with product launches. I'd volunteer at her non-profit events. We talked about kids, about growing old together, about building something meaningful. The proposal came on her favorite hiking trail, Hanging Lake. I'd carried the ring for 3 miles uphill, terrified I'd drop it in the water. When I got down on one knee at the top, she cried so hard she couldn't speak for 5 minutes, just nodded yes over and over. The wedding planning was surprisingly smooth. No bridezilla moments, no family drama. We agreed on everything: small ceremony, meaningful over flashy, donations to charity instead of expensive favors. It felt like we were perfectly aligned. The wedding day itself? Let me tell you, it was everything those expensive photographers try to capture but usually miss. 150 guests at a historic venue in the foothills. Nadine looked radiant, not just beautiful, but genuinely happy. The kind of happiness that comes from inside and lights up everything around it. My brother Garrett gave a speech that had everyone laughing and crying. Wade found someone who makes him want to be better, he'd said. And trust me, that's a miracle. Nadine's father, Bernard, talked about how he'd never seen his daughter more at peace. She found her anchor, he said, looking right at me. Every single person there believed we were the real deal, including me. But here's what nobody saw coming. Not our families, not our friends, and definitely not me, the woman who cried with joy at our first dance, who whispered finally when we were pronounced husband and wife, who held my hand so tight during the ceremony, I thought she'd never let go. That same woman had already made plans that would destroy everything before it even began. Tell me something. Have you ever looked back at your wedding photos and realized you were the only one who didn't know what was really happening? If you've ever discovered that a perfect moment was actually a perfect lie, let me know in the comments. Because what happened next still keeps me up at night, even 5 years later. The first night should have been the biggest red flag of my life. We'd chosen to stay at the historic Broadmoor Hotel instead of immediately leaving for a honeymoon. Nadine had a major non-profit project, and I'd supported her decision to postpone our trip. After all, we had our whole lives ahead of us, right? That night, after 17 hours of celebration, when I reached for my new wife's hand, she gently pulled away. Wade, I'm completely exhausted. Can we just sleep tonight? Tomorrow will be better. Of course, who wouldn't be tired after such a long day? I held her close, kissed her forehead, and fell asleep thinking how lucky I was. Day 2, my stomach is still upset from all that rich wedding food. Day 3, this headache came out of nowhere. I think it's from all the stress finally catching up. Day 4, the non-profit gala is next week. I can't focus on anything else. By day 5, a tiny alarm was going off in my head. We'd been together for 3 years. Living together for 1. This wasn't us. But I pushed the thought away. Marriage was a big adjustment, right? Day 6 brought a new excuse. I need to review these grant proposals. If we don't get this funding, we'll have to cut programs. Day 7, I think I'm coming down with something. Better keep distance so you don't catch it. A full week. 7 days of excuses, each one perfectly reasonable on its own. But together, they formed a pattern I was desperately trying not to see. Week 2 was when the excuses got creative. One night, she reorganized our entire bedroom closet until midnight. I can't relax when everything's in chaos, she said, folding and refolding the same shirts. Another night, she started a new meditation practice that required complete physical and mental solitude before sleep. The night after that, she was fasting for a work charity event and felt too weak for any interaction. I started writing them down in my phone, not to build a case against her, but to convince myself I wasn't going crazy. The list grew. Day 10, reading a life-changing book, need to finish it tonight. Day 11, my mother called. She's anxious about her upcoming procedure. Day 12, mandatory virtual meeting with donors in different time zone. Day 13, pulled muscle in my back during yoga. Day 14, processing emotional exhaustion from the wedding. That's when I first tried to address it. Sitting on our bed while she did her elaborate skincare routine, I asked if everything was okay between us. She looked at me with such genuine surprise that I almost believed nothing was wrong. Of course. Why would you even ask that? When I mentioned the distance since our wedding, she came over, took my hands and gave me the warmest smile. Wade, I love you. This is just a huge life transition. Work is insane. We just had this massive wedding. Everything's changing at once. Can you be patient with me? What could I say? Of course I'd be patient. I loved this woman. Week 3 was when desperation really set in. I tried everything. Romantic dinners that ended with her falling asleep on the couch. Surprise flowers that got a kiss on the cheek and an early bedtime. I even suggested couples massage, which she declined because of recent studies about the dangers of essential oils. Day 19, severe allergies from seasonal changes. Day 20, need to support my coworker through a crisis. Day 21, documentary about human trafficking really affected me. Day 22, catching up on work emails until late. Day 23, hormonal imbalance from stress. Day 24, just not feeling like myself lately. Every morning she'd kiss me goodbye like everything was normal. Every evening we'd cook dinner together, laugh at our shows, act like newlyweds. But the moment bedtime approached, the wall went up. My brother Garrett called to check in, and I lied through my teeth. Marriage is great. Meanwhile, I was sleeping next to a stranger who used to be my best friend. Now, listen to what she said on day 25. And editors, please highlight this part, because it's when everything started to crack. I suggested we see a counselor. Not because anything was wrong, I said, but to strengthen our communication as newlyweds. Her response? She laughed. Actually laughed. Counseling? Wade, we've been married 3 weeks. What would we even tell them? That night she went to bed at 8:30 with a migraine. Day 26 through 29 blur together in my memory. More excuses, more rejection, more confusion. I spent one night in the guest room just to see if she'd notice. She didn't. By day 30, I knew something had to give. Either I was married to someone with serious health issues who refused to see a doctor, or something else was happening. The truth, as I'd soon discover, was worse than anything I could have imagined. Day 30. 1 full month since we'd said I do. I'd spent the previous night in our guest room, staring at the ceiling, rehearsing what I needed to say. When morning came, Nadine chatted about her schedule over breakfast like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't noticed I'd slept in another room, like the last 30 days hadn't happened. That evening, I asked her to sit with me in the living room. No TV, no phones, no distractions. We need to talk about what's happening between us, I started, my voice steadier than my hands. She tilted her head, looking genuinely curious. What do you mean? Nadine, it's been 30 days since our wedding. 30 days of distance, 30 days of excuses, 30 days of you pulling away every single night. She shifted on the couch but kept her expression neutral. Wade, I've explained each time. No, the word came out sharper than intended. You've given me a different reason every single night. 30 different reasons isn't an explanation, it's a pattern, and we both know it. The silence stretched between us. I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen, our neighbor's dog barking outside, normal life continuing while mine fell apart. Finally, she stood up, walked to the window, and spoke with her back to me. You want the truth? Fine. My body, my choice. You have no right to demand anything from me physically. I don't owe you intimacy just because we're married. Those words hit different than I expected. Not because they were wrong. She was absolutely right about bodily autonomy. Every person has that right. But it was how she said it, like reading from a script, like throwing up a wall to end any real conversation. Nadine, I'm not demanding anything, I said carefully, standing up but keeping my distance. I'm trying to understand what changed. We had a normal, healthy relationship for 3 years. Then the literal day we got married, it stopped. Completely. Don't I deserve to know why? She turned around, and for the first time since our wedding, I saw something cold in her eyes, something calculating. Maybe I just don't feel that way anymore. People change. In one day? My voice cracked. People change in literally one day from our wedding night. My body, my choice, she repeated, like it was a shield. You're right, I said, and I meant it. It is absolutely your choice, 100%. But it's also my choice to understand what kind of marriage I'm in. It's my choice to know if my wife loves me, if she's attracted to me, if I did something wrong, if there's someone else. How dare you? Her calm shattered. There's nobody else. How could you even suggest that? Then what is it? I was almost begging now. Please, just help me understand. If you're going through something, if you're scared, if you're having second thoughts, just talk to me. We promise to be partners. Remember, for better or worse. She grabbed her purse from the side table, her movements sharp and angry. I don't have to explain myself to you or anyone else. You're trying to guilt me into something, and I won't stand for it. Nadine, please. I'm going to my sister's tonight, she announced, already heading for the door. Maybe you need time to think about whether you can accept me as I am, instead of trying to control me. I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to understand my own marriage. She paused at the door, her hand on the knob. Your marriage is what it is, Wade. Take it or leave it. The door slammed behind her, rattling the wedding photos on the wall. I stood there in our living room, surrounded by gifts we hadn't even finished unwrapping, feeling like I'd just been divorced without the paperwork. What would you have done at this moment? Seriously, I'm asking. Would you have followed her, called a lawyer, accepted that this was your new reality? Because I did something that night that changed everything, and I need to know, was I wrong? Type follow, accept, or investigate in the comments below. Tell me what your gut says, because mine was screaming that something deeper was happening here. And if you're still watching, hit that like button if this story is hitting close to home. Because what I discovered next made this confrontation look like a gentle disagreement. That night, alone in our empty house, I did something I'm not proud of. I went into Nadine's home office. Let me be clear. I know going through someone's private things is wrong. I know it violates trust. But what trust was left? My wife had just walked out after telling me to take it or leave it about a marriage that made no sense. My gut was screaming that something bigger was happening, and I needed answers. Her office was meticulously organized, just like everything else in her life. Non-profit folders alphabetized, grant applications filed by date, everything in its perfect place. I sat at her desk, my hands shaking, not even sure what I was looking for. The top drawer had office supplies. The second had tax documents. But the bottom drawer, that's where my world started to collapse. There was a folder labeled Personal tucked behind old bank statements. Inside, I found medical documents that made my blood run cold. Fertility clinic paperwork, dated 6 months before our wedding. Test results showing severe reproductive complications. Treatment plans with costs that made my eyes water. $60,000 for the basic package, over $100,000 for the comprehensive plan. At the bottom of each estimate, stamped in red, not covered by current insurance plan, my hands were trembling as I kept reading. There were consultation notes, medication schedules, success rate statistics highlighted in yellow. But one document stopped me cold, a handwritten note in Nadine's perfect cursive. After marriage, W's company insurance covers 80% of fertility treatments. Estimated out-of-pocket, $8,000 instead of $60,000. Timeline: begin treatment within 60 days of coverage starting. That was me, Wade. I sat back in her chair, the paper falling from my numb fingers. She'd known. 6 months before our wedding, she'd been planning this. Every conversation we'd had about starting a family, about our future children, she'd already known about her condition and never told me. But wait, it gets worse. Behind the medical files, I found a manila envelope marked D, personal. My stomach turned as I opened it. Printed emails. The sender's name made no sense at first. Derek Patterson. The first email was dated 3 weeks before our wedding. Nadine, I understand why you're doing this. It's not ideal, but we both know I can't give you children. Not after what the cancer treatment did to me. If this is what you need to do to have the family you've always dreamed of, I support you. Her response made me physically sick. D, this is harder than I thought it would be. Wade's a good person. But you're right. This is the only way. My biological clock isn't waiting, and the treatments are impossible without his insurance. 2 years, maybe less if everything goes smoothly, then we can be together properly. I love you. His final reply, sent the day before my wedding. I'll wait. Get what you need, build your family, then come back to me. We've waited this long, what's a few more years? Just remember, he's a means to an end. Don't lose sight of that. All my love, D. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. When I could breathe again, I went back and photographed everything. Every document, every email, every piece of evidence that my entire marriage was a business transaction. That while I was writing vows about eternal love, she was calculating insurance deductibles. That while I was planning our future, she was planning her escape. The worst part, there were more emails, dozens of them, updates about the wedding planning where she mocked my romantic gestures, complaints about having to play the part at wedding events. One message sent the night of our rehearsal dinner, one more day of this performance, then I can start the clock on getting what I need. I sat on her office floor until sunrise, surrounded by the evidence of my wife's deception. This wasn't just about avoiding intimacy. This was about a woman who had married me for my health insurance, who was in love with someone else, and who had orchestrated our entire relationship as a means to have children before returning to her real love. The 30 days of rejection suddenly made perfect sense. She couldn't bring herself to be intimate with me because in her mind, I wasn't her husband. I was her insurance policy, her fertility fund, her temporary solution to a permanent problem. Every I love you had been a lie. Every kiss at our wedding had been staged. Every tear of joy had been an act. I wasn't a husband who'd been rejected. I was a Mark who'd been conned. As the sun came up on day 31 of our marriage, I sat in that office with one thought running through my head. What kind of person does this? And more importantly, what was I going to do about it? Nadine came home the next afternoon. I was sitting at our kitchen table with all the documents spread out in front of me like evidence in a courthouse. She saw them from the doorway and froze. You went through my things, no anger in her voice, no outrage, just resignation, like she'd been expecting this moment. Explain this, I said quietly, all of it. She set down her purse, walked slowly to the table and sat across from me. For the first time since our wedding day, I saw the real Nadine. Not the loving fiancée, not the dedicated non-profit director, not the exhausted new wife. Just a desperate woman whose plan had been exposed. I'm 35, Wade. Her voice was flat, matter-of-fact. My biological clock isn't ticking anymore, it's screaming. When I got the diagnosis 8 months ago, my whole world collapsed. The treatments cost more than I make in 2 years. My insurance covers nothing. So you married me for my insurance? The words tasted like poison. No. She reached across the table, but I pulled my hands back. Not just that. Wade, listen to me. You're a good man. You're successful, kind, stable. You want children. You'll be an amazing father. I convinced myself this was win-win. But you're in love with Derek. She didn't deny it, couldn't deny it. The evidence was right there between us. Derek and I were together for 4 years before you, she said slowly. We were perfect together except for one thing. He can't have children. The cancer treatment when he was 17 destroyed that possibility. We tried to make it work, but I couldn't give up my dream of being a mother. So you found me instead. My voice was hollow. I met you legitimately at that charity event. I wasn't looking for anyone. But when I learned about your company's insurance benefits, when I saw how badly you wanted a family too, I thought maybe this could work. You planned this for 6 months before our wedding, Nadine. 6 months of lying to my face. She looked down at the emails between her and Derek. I told myself it wasn't lying. That lots of people marry for practical reasons. For security, for citizenship, for social status. Why was this different? Because you took away my choice. I slammed my hand on the table, making her jump. You stole my ability to make an informed decision about my own life. If you'd told me the truth, about your fertility issues, about needing help with treatment costs, about Derek, maybe we could have figured something out, but you decided for both of us. Would you have married me if you knew? She asked. I don't know, but that should have been my decision to make. She was crying now, but they felt like strategic tears. Wade, I'm not a bad person. I just got desperate. The doctor said if I don't start treatment soon, my chances drop to almost zero. I panicked, and the 30 days of rejection, the constant excuses. Her face crumbled. I couldn't. Every time you tried to touch me, all I could think about was Derek, about what I was doing to you, to him, to myself. It made me feel physically sick, not because of you didn't do anything wrong, but because I knew I was living a lie and my body just refused to play along. So your plan was what? Use me for babies and then leave? 2 years, she admitted quietly. Maybe 3. Enough time to have 2 children, establish myself as primary caregiver, then divorce with custody and child support. Derek would be their stepfather. The calculation of it all was breathtaking. While I'd been planning our anniversary trips, she'd been planning her exit strategy. You're a monster, I whispered. No, she said firmly. I'm a woman who wanted to be a mother so badly that I lost myself. That's not an excuse, Wade. Just the truth. Could you forgive this? I'm genuinely asking. If someone you loved did this to you, used you, planned to discard you but claimed desperation made them do it, could you find forgiveness? Type forgive or never in the comments. Because what I decided to do next surprised even me. Here's where I did something nobody expected, including myself. I stood up from that kitchen table, walked to our bedroom, and started packing a bag. Nadine followed me, alternating between apologies and justifications, trying to explain how society pressures women, how her biological clock had driven her to extremes, how she never meant to hurt anyone. I didn't say a word, not while I packed, not while I grabbed my laptop, not while I collected the photos I'd taken of all her documents. Finally, standing at our bedroom door with my bag in hand, I turned to face her. I'm going to stay at a hotel for exactly 1 week. During that time, you're going to make a choice. Wade, please, we can talk about this. No, you're going to listen. Option 1, we go to counseling. Real counseling, not some performance. You tell the therapist everything. The fertility issues, the insurance fraud, Derek, all of it. We put everything on the table and see if there's any possible way to build something genuine from this disaster. It would take years. You'd have to cut Derek out completely. You'd have to actually try to be the wife you pretended to be. Her face had gone pale. Or option 2, we divorce immediately. But here's the thing, Nadine. If we divorce, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly why. Wade, you wouldn't. Your father, Bernard, who stood up at our wedding and cried, talking about how happy you were. He'll know his daughter married a man for his health insurance. She sank onto the bed. Your mother, who welcomed me into the family with such joy. She'll know about Derek and the plan to use me for children before leaving. please. Every single person at that non-profit where you're seen as this beacon of integrity and compassion, they'll know their director is capable of this level of deception. Your donors, your volunteers, your entire professional network. That would destroy my career. She was crying now, real tears this time. Yes, I agreed calmly, it would. Just like you destroyed our marriage before it even started. Just like you were planning to destroy me in 2 years when you took my children and went back to Derek. Wade, I'm begging you, I'm not done. I'll also contact Derek. I'll forward him all these emails with my lawyer's assessment of conspiracy to commit fraud. Because that's what this is, Nadine. You conspired with another person to defraud me through marriage. That's actually a crime. She looked like she might be sick. But here's the thing, I continued. I'm offering you option 1, a chance to become the person you pretended to be, to actually work on becoming a real partner, to get therapy for whatever drove you to this point, to maybe, possibly, build something true from all these lies. Why? She whispered. Why would you offer that? Because destroying you would be easy. It would feel good for about a week. But then I'd be left with nothing but anger and wasted years. Because despite everything, I meant my vows, for better or worse. This is definitely worse, but maybe, just maybe, if you actually did the work, if you actually committed to changing, something better could come from it. I headed for the door. You have 1 week to decide. If you choose option 1, the first counseling appointment better be booked when I get back, and Derek better be blocked on everything, forever. If you choose option 2, I'll have divorce papers drawn up, and the truth will come out. Wade, wait. One more thing. If you choose option 1 but don't really commit, if you try to fake your way through counseling like you faked your way through our wedding, I'll know. And then option 2 happens anyway, except worse, because everyone will also know you couldn't even commit to fixing what you broke. I left her sitting on our bed, surrounded by the life we were supposed to build together. At the hotel that night, I wondered if I was crazy for offering her any chance at all. But here's the thing about revenge. Sometimes the cruelest thing you can do to someone is force them to face who they really are. And sometimes the best revenge is making them earn the life they tried to steal. If you're still watching, hit that subscribe button, because what Nadine chose and what happened next changed both our lives in ways neither of us saw coming. 4 days into my hotel stay, my phone rang. Nadine, I've booked us an appointment with Dr. Patricia Thornton for the day you come back, she said without preamble. I've also written Derek a final email explaining everything and blocking him on all platforms. I'm choosing option 1, Wade. I want to try. Why? I needed to know. Because you're right. I've become someone I don't recognize, and if there's even a small chance I can find my way back to being a decent human being, I have to take it. That first counseling session was brutal. Dr. Thornton didn't let either of us hide. Nadine had to explain everything, the fertility diagnosis, the insurance scheme, Derek, the calculated deception. She had to say it all out loud to another human being, while I sat there reliving every lie. I convinced myself everyone does this, Nadine told the therapist. Women throughout history have married for security, for status. I told myself I was just being practical. But you knew it was wrong, Dr. Thornton observed. That's why you couldn't be intimate with Wade. Your body was telling you what your mind wouldn't admit. The breakthrough came in session 4, about a month later. Nadine completely broke down. Not the controlled tears I'd seen before, but body-shaking sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep. I'm a fraud, she wept. Everything about me is fake. The non-profit work where I pretend to help others, the caring persona, it's all just trying to prove I'm good when I know I'm rotten inside. It was the first completely honest thing she'd said since I'd discovered the truth. Dr. Thornton leaned forward. That's where you're wrong. A truly rotten person wouldn't feel this guilt. They wouldn't be here doing this work. The fact that you feel this pain means there's still something genuine in you to rebuild from. 3 months in, Nadine did something I never expected. She quit her job at the non-profit. I can't stand the hypocrisy, she explained over dinner. We were still in separate bedrooms, but sharing meals. How can I advocate for transparency and helping others when I've been living such a massive lie? What will you do? I found a position at a regular marketing firm. Lower pay, worse benefits, and definitely no fertility coverage. But at least I'll earn my money honestly. The sacrifice was real. She was walking away from a career she'd built for 10 years, from professional relationships and a reputation she'd carefully cultivated. But she said she couldn't look her colleagues in the eye knowing what she'd done. Month 5 brought another shock. Nadine came home with adoption brochures. "I've been thinking," she said, sitting across from me at what had become our regular talking spot. "Maybe my fertility issues aren't a curse. Maybe they're a sign. There are so many children who need homes, who need parents. Maybe that's supposed to be our path." "Our path?" I questioned. "You're assuming there's still an us." "I'm hoping," she corrected. "Wade, I know I have no right to hope, but I'm different now, or at least I'm trying to be." She was different. The calculating woman who'd mapped out our marriage like a business plan was gone. In her place was someone raw, more vulnerable, but also more real. She started volunteering at a local shelter on weekends, not for her resume, but because she said she needed to remember what actual service looked like. She wrote letters to everyone who'd attended our wedding, taking responsibility for not being the partner I deserved. She didn't give details, but she owned her failures. Her parents were confused. Mine was suspicious. But she weathered their questions without playing victim or throwing me under the bus. "Why are you doing all this?" I asked her one night, 8 months after the discovery. "Because you gave me something nobody else ever has," she said simply. "The chance to become better, instead of just pretending to be better. Do you know how rare that is? Most people would have destroyed me and been justified in doing it. You gave me a chance to destroy myself and rebuild as someone worth being." It took a full year before we were truly intimate again, not because she withheld or I demanded, but because we both needed to know it was real, that it came from genuine feeling, not obligation or manipulation. When it finally happened, it wasn't like the movies. It was awkward, vulnerable, and a little sad, mourning what we should have had while trying to build what we could have. "This is harder than I thought," she admitted afterward. "The truth usually is," I replied. "Have you ever given someone a second chance who absolutely didn't deserve it? Not because they earned it, but because you saw a glimmer of who they could become? Tell me in the comments, has anyone ever given you that kind of grace when you'd failed them? Because what happened next proved that sometimes the biggest transformations come from the worst beginnings. 5 years have passed since that nightmare first month of marriage. I'm writing this with Nadine beside me, occasionally suggesting edits, sometimes crying at the memories. We have 3 adopted children now. Timothy, who's 8, and obsessed with building robots, Coral, 6, who insists on wearing her butterfly wings to grocery stores, and baby Jasper, 18 months, who just learned to say daddy last week. Our house is beautiful chaos. Toys everywhere, constant noise, interrupted conversations, sleepless nights. It's nothing like the life I'd imagined on our wedding day. It's better. It's real. Nadine works part-time as a freelance grant writer now, only taking clients whose missions genuinely move her. Last week she turned down a lucrative contract because, in her words, "I can't write passion I don't feel anymore. The fertility treatments we never pursued? Turns out they wouldn't have worked anyway. Nadine's condition had progressed beyond what any treatment could fix. When she got that news 2 years ago, she simply said, Maybe my body knew something my heart didn't, that our children were waiting for us elsewhere. Derek reached out once, 3 years ago. Nadine showed me the message immediately, and we crafted the response together. I'm where I'm supposed to be. Please respect that this chapter is closed. But here's what I really want you to understand about revenge and forgiveness. The revenge I threatened, exposing Nadine to everyone, would have destroyed her, yes, but it also would have destroyed me. I would have become someone who chose destruction over transformation, bitterness over building. That's not revenge, that's mutual destruction. Real revenge. It was forcing her to become the person she'd pretended to be. It was watching her struggle every single day to earn what she'd tried to steal. It was seeing her choose the harder path when the easy lie was right there. But here's the twist. Somewhere along the way, it stopped being about revenge and became about redemption. Both of ours. She had to redeem herself from the person who could plan such deception. I had to redeem myself from the person who was so desperate for perfect love that I ignored every warning sign. Dr. Thornton, who we still see quarterly, calls our marriage beautifully broken. We're held together not by the illusion of perfection, but by the acknowledgement of our deepest flaws. We've seen each other at our absolute worst. There's strange freedom in that. Nadine often tells people who ask for relationship advice, start with truth, even if it's ugly. Building truth on top of lies is like building a house on quicksand. And I add, when someone shows you who they really are, believe them. But also believe they can become someone different if they're willing to do the work. Our children don't know this story yet. Someday when they're older, we'll tell them, not to glorify what happened, but to show them that people are complex, that mistakes can be transformed into lessons, and that sometimes the worst beginnings create the strongest foundations, if you're willing to demolish everything fake and rebuild with truth. The title promised you a shocking revenge that changed our lives forever. It did. But the most shocking part, the revenge became redemption, the betrayal became a beginning. The 30 days that shattered everything became the reason we could build something unshakable. If this story hit you differently than you expected, subscribe for more real stories about imperfect people finding imperfect solutions. Share this if you believe in second chances, even when they seem impossible. And comment below, what's harder, destroying someone who hurt you, or helping them become better? Because I'm still not sure I made the right choice. I just know I made the only choice I could live with.